Guitar tips, just the tips just for you. Guitar tips. Hello and welcome to another episode of Guitar Tips. My name is Adam Levy. This is my video blog series on YouTube. As you may know, if you've been following along over the past few episodes in consecutive order, I'm in the midst of doing a mini-series within the series, and this is called the ABCs of Guitar Tips. It's a 26-week mini-series guided by the alphabet, of course, and here I'm revisiting some topics that I've explored earlier and hoping to shine some new light on those, and also exploring some things that I have not talked about before here on Guitar Tips. And today's episode is one of those that I haven't really talked about before, so let's get started. E, that's E this week, the fifth letter of the alphabet. E stands for emotional contour. Now, this may be a phrase that you've heard before or may not be. I first heard the phrase emotional contour when I was at music school. I went to a school in Los Angeles called the Dick Grove School of Music. It's long since closed, but they had a great guitar program, and they had a really fantastic composing and arranging program, and I went through both of those. And in the composing and arranging program, I learned to write for woodwind instruments and brass instruments and strings, like not these strings, but violins and cellos and things like that. Learned arranging, and that's where the phrase emotional contour, that's the first place that I heard it. And what the idea is that if you're writing an arrangement, you make a little sort of illustration of it on graph paper, marking out how many measures it is and over how much time the arrangement is going to be. And then you before you get out a score pad and start writing specific notes in, first trumpet plays this, second trumpet plays that, and so on, you actually look at the arc of your arrangement in measures and time, and you draw an emotional contour of how where you want the peaks and valleys to be, where do you want the most energy, the most excitement, and where do you want a bit of a lull. Now, you might wonder, okay, well, what does that have to do with guitar playing? Here we're not writing for woodwinds or brass or anything like that. Here we're just playing guitar. But to me, I've found the concept to be really helpful in guitar playing as well, when taking a solo especially. When we learn to improvise, the first thing that we're told usually is, there's these certain scales, and you should learn these scales, and then you should learn how those scales relate to particular chords, and when you see this chord come up, then you'll play this scale. So if the chord was E minor, you might play an E minor pentatonic, or you might play E Dorian, or some other type of E minor scale. And that's fine to know that. I mean, of course, you should know how scales and chords are related and how they complement each other. But it doesn't tell you a lot about how to shape your solo. And when you think of, really great solos, the ones that we remember, of course, one thing is, they're often melodic. But another aspect that I don't hear people talk about very much is the emotional contour of it. So that's the shape of it. If the solo is, say, 16 measures long, and we'll just say that this is 16 measures somehow, where are the peaks and where are the valleys? How many peaks? How many valleys? And that's something that you control. It shouldn't just be something that you notice after the fact, when you listen back, assuming you're recording, It shouldn't just be something that you notice after the fact when you listen back to the recording, but it should be something that you're doing intentionally. It really helps you get from point A to point B and arrive at the right time, because you're already thinking ahead. It's 16 measures long. I know it's going to end here, so as it draws to a close, I can either be coming down or going up or leveling off or whatever it is, but I know that there's a finite point there where some other musical event is going to happen and my solo is going to stop. But within that time, while the spotlight is on me, how do I want to fill that space? So I just want you to think about, instead of thinking I'm going to fill that space with E minor pentatonic scales, think about it in terms of the emotional contour that you want to build. You can tell a story any way you want to. There's no right or wrong way to do it. The point isn't for me to tell you, all guitar solos must have a small climax here and a large climax here and then work their way back down at the end. That's just simply not true. If you think about some of your favorite guitar solos, they probably don't all follow the same arc, the same type of arc, but they do follow some sort of arc, and that's what I want you to be aware of. So the main things that we can use to build energy, to raise the stakes in a solo are, I think, pretty obvious, but I'll say them. You can play higher, so that's the difference between starting out here and working. As you go higher, it gets naturally a little more exciting. Higher, faster, so you can start out slow and get a little faster. That's faster. And louder, you can start quietly and get louder as you go. And make it quieter again. So higher, faster, louder, those are the things that naturally build excitement and emotional energy in your solo. There's a couple of other things that could also have an effect. One is harmonic tension. And what I mean is, if you're playing over E minor, if you use just notes of the E minor, well, here I've got a little thing I can play. If you use just notes of E minor, that's E, G, and B, there's not a lot of harmonic tension. But if you play maybe the ninth, that becomes something that we haven't heard before, and that adds some excitement, even if you played in this lower octave. So now I'm going to play some E minor stuff again and then go to the 9. So there's the 9th, so that's some harmonic tension. The 11th would also have some tension. So now I'm playing off the 11 and the 9 and the flat 7, essentially a D triad against the E minor. So here's E minor against E minor. Here's D against E minor. And then we can go back. So that kind of harmonic tension is another way of, raising the stakes. Another way that you can build the dynamics is through harmonic density. So, if you start out playing one note at a time and then go to 2 notes, well, you'll hear what that sounds like. So here's one note at a time and then into 2. 2, 3, 1. So there, I messed with the harmonic density by playing 4 notes at a time, and also the harmonic tension by playing some chromatic notes that were outside of the scale. That leads to one other thing that you can do, just broadly, generally, is surprise or special effects. A surprise would just be playing a note that nobody would expect. Maybe you're going up high and suddenly you're low, or maybe you're playing stuff that's really inside the chord and suddenly you just take a left turn. So, in other words, instead of easing into some different kinds of tension, you just go there immediately. That would be a surprise. Or, special effects like, harmonics or weird kind of jangly things that are slightly out of tune, or use open strings, or any combination of those things, open strings, harmonics, intentionally out of tune things and stuff like that. Those are all different ways that you can build tension, besides the things I mentioned earlier of higher, faster, louder. I really would encourage you to do this as, I'm using a ditto looper. You could use any kind of looper that you have to make a backing track for yourself. And, just get out a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper and draw some doodles. Make sure that you're clear in your mind of how many measures that doodle represents, whether it represents 4 measures or 8 or 16 or whatever. And see if you can follow that line. Don't worry too much about right notes and wrong notes. Really just concentrate on energy and lifts and rises and falls and peaks and valleys and dynamics, essentially. So try that. If you're into jazz or just any kind of music that has song forms and interesting harmonic changes, harmony changes, it can be limiting in the sense that some jazz tunes have built into them an emotional contour. If you play a song like Stella by Starlight, for example, there's a built-in peak of the song. It happens about 2/3 of the way through, and that it's achieved by some harmonic movements and also the melody. If you're playing the melody of the song, it's the highest point in the melody and also pretty far away. Intense kind of harmony compared to where the song starts off. So you have to be mindful of that. But if you're playing kind of music that's more static harmonically, like just you're jamming over 1 chord or 2 chords and it just hangs out there for a long time, then you really have a lot of freedom to build whatever kind of shape you want. So I'm going to give you 2 assignments here to do, and of course I'll be back next week, and I won't be able to really talk with you because this is just YouTube. But take it as a real assignment and do this for a week. 2 things. One is draw some doodles that represent a certain amount of time, and really try to play those doodles, whether it's over 1 chord or a series of chords, or whatever is the kind of, whatever makes sense for the kind of music you play. That's the first assignment. And then the second assignment is to do an emotional contour transcription of 3 of your favorite guitar solos. Take 3 guitar solos that you absolutely love, count out how many measures they are, and you'll just have to, count it out. And you could also do it in time with a stopwatch. You probably don't have a stopwatch, but use your iPhone or whatever you have to actually time out how long, not the whole song, but just the guitar solo. And make a little, doodle on paper and do a transcription of the shape of the guitar solo. And do that for 3 different solos. And then go and see if you can create your own solo using those doodles, the doodles of the guitar gods of your choosing. So that's the work to do for emotional contours. Thanks for tuning in. I do want to mention, if you're not aware, that besides doing guitar tips here on YouTube, I also have a channel on Patreon. You can find it. There'll be a link down below, or you can go there directly at guitartipspro.com. It's not free, it's a subscription, but there's a lot more stuff there, longer lessons, more intensive lessons. Many of the lessons come with PDFs or MP3s or extra kind of goodies to help you really get the most out of the lesson. So I hope you'll check that out at guitartipspro.com. I'll be back here next week with a new episode on the letter F. This is the ABCs of Guitar Tips for Guitar Tips here in Los Angeles, California. I'm Adam Levy. Stay tuned and take good care.